So today we're taking a look at the Slick Gimbal. It's a 3-axis gimbal, rainproof, dustproof, compatible with pretty much every single GoPro out there. It's a mountable GoPro gimbal, so it doesn't come with a pole or anything like that. So what I'm gonna do is a quick little overview of the gimbal, tell you what all the buttons do, go over some of the accessories, and then do some real-world tests, like some stabilization tests, some walking, some running, some riding, as well as some audio tests. All right, so let me just quickly go over what you get if you buy this gimbal. So in the box, you're gonna get a USB cable for charging, you're gonna get a thumb screw and a mount for the gimbal. Obviously, the gimbal itself, GoPro not included, and optional, this is an optional accessory. You can get the case. It's a Slick case for the gimbal. Open it up in here, you can see there's some zippers, carry some stuff, and to put the gimbal right inside. This case here goes for $49.99, and the gimbal itself is $299. All right, so before I show you all the buttons and how this thing works, I just want to quickly talk about the gimbal itself. So, like I said, it's a 3-axis gimbal. It's rainproof, it's dustproof. It supposedly lasts anywhere between 3 and 4 hours, the battery itself, and it takes 5 hours to charge. And you could kind of see the USB port right here. That's where you would charge the gimbal up. All right, so let's quickly just go over what some of the buttons do here. So over here, you can see the power button on the left, a star or asterisk, that's the mode button. And then over on the other side, we have a left and a right arrow. So that's gonna actually position the GoPro however we want it, up or down, so we get it perfect. So let's just quickly power it on. But before that, so like I mentioned, it's a mountable gimbal. So you're actually mounting this on, say, a helmet, on your chesty, or even on a selfie pole. I have the GoPro 3-way pole, which I'll be using that later. So let's just power it on. You notice the LEDs turn on and the gimbal turns right on. So by default, the Slick Gimbal turns on in pan mode. So what that means is it's always going to keep the horizon straight. So no matter if I go left, if I go right, point it down or up, it's going to face in a forward direction. If I hit that star button twice, 1, 2, it'll go into follow mode. So if I point it up, it'll point up. If I point it down, it'll point down. If I go left, right, diagonal, it'll just go in that direction. So now when I hit that asterisk button 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it'll go into lock mode. So what happens is the camera gets locked. It's it's not going to rotate. It's almost as if it's on a steady tripod. Now, if I want to go back to the original mode or default mode, which is pan mode, I can just hit that button 1 time, and now it is back in pan mode. So the last mode is time-lapse mode. So if I hit it 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, it goes into time-lapse mode, so you can do a time-lapse or record video, and the gimbal's actually gonna rotate. So I think it's time to go out and do some real-world tests. I'm gonna go and do some running, some walking, and I'm also gonna do some audio tests to see how well the audio is from the gimbal, actually from the GoPro, but to see if the GoPro is gonna pick up any motor noises from the gimbal. All right, so let's go do that now. Okay, so we're first going to start off with the GoPro Hero 6, and then we're going to move on to the other GoPros a little bit later. And to be honest, this is my first time using the GoPro Hero 6, so I'm pretty excited for that. So right now I have the gimbal set to pan mode, you know, do some basic walking, kind of get an idea on if you were to use this sort of thing like as a vlog setup or something. Let's pan it around. And what we're gonna do is pick up the speed a little bit to see if we notice any shakiness or, you know, if it's actually gonna be stable. So let's pick up the speed here. Okay, what I wanna do now is enable follow mode. So we're gonna hit that mode button twice, and now wherever I aim the gimbal, the GoPro is going to point in that direction. So say you want to get a shot of your feet, point it down, get a shot of this beautiful tree here. Look at that, amazing. So yeah, you get an idea on how that works. And now I'm going to switch it over to lock mode. So now it's locked into that position here. So if I move the gimbal around, you honestly probably can't even really tell, but the GoPro is always going to point in that direction. So I'll walk there, go sideways. So it's gonna keep that and lock it in. So I would recommend this mode if you're just standing in one place and you want your shot to be pretty stable and all the action is only happening in that direction. So in the previous shot, I had the audio set to auto, so it's gonna switch between the two different microphones. Now, what I found with testing gimbals, that with the GoPro Hero 5, there was a lot of issues with audio, so I'm really curious to see how the Hero 6 is gonna do. So, like I said, the previous shot was with auto. Now I have wind-only mode, which is usually the best mode to use with the GoPro Hero 5. However, I'm not too sure what's gonna happen with the GoPro Hero 6. So by now, you should know how it sounds in wind-only mode and auto. Now let's switch over to stereo-only mode. And now I'm in stereo only mode. So what happens is it's actually going to use both of those microphones simultaneously. It's not going to switch between the two. It's going to use both at the same exact time. So, you know, this was also a bad mode to use with gimbals with the Hero 5. So we'll see how this GoPro does with this gimbal. So I'm actually really surprised with how well the GoPro Hero 6 did with the Slick gimbal. Shots look very stable. The audio quality was actually really good, and I was not expecting that because the GoPro Hero 5 has so many issues with gimbals. So here I got the GoPro Hero 5. We're gonna do the same test. I think we're gonna hear some problems with the audio. Stabilization probably is gonna be the same, but let's go ahead and do the test. Okay, we got the GoPro Hero 5. Same sort of test as the last one with the GoPro Hero 6. Audio is set to auto, and you know, kind of get an idea on what's going on, how stable it is. Then we'll pick up the pace to see if there's any jumpiness or anything like that. So let's go. I'm gonna get hit here. And now I have wind-only mode enabled on the GoPro Hero 5. We should hear a better audio, some better audio quality from the GoPro, because we're just using that one microphone. But you be the judge. Let me know. We're spinning it around here, get my voice from the other direction. And now let's try stereo only mode. And now here we are with stereo only mode, using both of those microphones at the same exact time. And yeah, usually on the GoPro Hero 5, this is not going to be an ideal selection for audio, but we'll see if that's true or not. Spin it back, and we're done with this test. So yeah, that was the GoPro Hero 5, and obviously every single mode that you use, it still doesn't sound that great. Wind-only mode is going to be the best mode to use with the GoPro Hero 5 when you're using a gimbal. So that issue is not particular to this Slick gimbal. Every gimbal that I've tested mostly do have this issue. So what we're going to do now is test the GoPro Hero 4, and then we'll do the GoPro Hero 5 session. Okay, now we are testing the GoPro Hero 4 Black. This actually used to be my favorite GoPro camera. I actually have 6 of these things. But right after today doing these tests, like, I'm really loving that GoPro Hero 6. But here, like, immediately you already hear that the quality of the audio is very good when compared to the GoPro Hero 5. You know, stabilization should be also great using the Slick gimbal. Let's spin it around and pick up the pace a bit. Awesome. And now we got the Slick gimbal set to follow mode. Spin that around, get down to your feet. You know, the one disadvantage of the GoPro Hero 4 Black is that you have no screen, so you can't really see where you're aiming it. With some practice, you kind of get an idea on where things should be pointed. But if you really require a screen, you know, the GoPro Hero 4 Silver does have one if you're trying to save some money getting a cheaper GoPro. But if you can shell out some cash, I definitely recommend that GoPro Hero 6. So the GoPro Hero 4 looked great. The audio was excellent, sounds very good. The GoPro Hero 4 usually doesn't have any issues with gimbals from what I found. So let's test the GoPro Hero 5 session next. And now we're looking at the GoPro Hero 5 session. So this is a small camera. I'm not too sure how well this gimbal is gonna be at balancing this camera because I feel like it's kind of light. So if there's no weight to it, it might have some trouble balancing it out, but we'll see how that goes. Now, the other thing I know about this camera with gimbals is that it actually does really well with audio. So, you know, by now you can hear what the audio sounds like from my voice. Let's spin it around so you can hear it from behind. There we go. Let's switch it over to follow mode. See how well it does with balancing that out. Point it up here. It's looking like it's doing a good job. All right. Hero 5 session shots looked awesome. They looked really great. Audio quality was also good, so it does perform well with the Slick gimbal. So what I want to do next is see how this gimbal reacts if I have it mounted on my chesty and doing some mountain biking. So we're on some rough terrain, it's kind of bumpy, but you can see that the gimbal is actually doing a really good job at managing all these bumps and stabilizing the shot. You know, one problem that I found when doing this was the Slick gimbal is kind of heavy, and when it was on my chesty, it kind of bounced around a lot. So I was looking into this, and it seems like there's better chesty mounts out there that you can get if you really want to capture these sort of shots. But if you're just using a standard GoPro chesty, this is what you would expect, and it's actually not that bad, even though the gimbal is actually bouncing around a lot. So it does look good, and you notice that the gimbal popped up at the top of the shot, or the top of the frame there. So the problem was, if I mount it upside down and I lean forward, you won't actually see the gimbal in the shot. But since I had it mounted on the upward position, it falls into the shot. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And here's a quick example of what I mean. Right now I have the gimbal mounted in the upward position, so when we lean forward, the gimbal is going to fall into the shot. Now, if we lean back, it actually, you know, nothing happens. It doesn't get into the shot. So now what I'm going to do is flip it so that the gimbal is upside down. You can see that there. Now, when I lean forward, the gimbal is no longer in the shot. So this is going to be the ideal position that you should mount the Slick gimbal, in the upside down position. You kind of see that the gimbal's sitting on the chesty a bit, so it keeps it a little bit more stable. Okay, so now I just want to run through some other clips that I captured with the Slick gimbal. Whee! Yeah, so just to kind of run through different kind of scenarios, you know, running fast-paced, jumping around a little bit. So, you know, I had to hop up on that little log there, twist it around real quick. So it's doing a really good job at balancing these shots out. This looks kind of slow, but it's actually pretty quick, and I was running for like a half a mile, I feel like. And I'm really sorry if this, like on YouTube, what happens is the compression on YouTube is so horrible, so I have a feeling that these shots are probably not going to look that great. Now, the purpose of this shot, I was actually capturing this on a skateboard, which, you know, is sort of like a cheat, but the whole purpose of this was to show that it's raining, it's actually drizzling, I was using it for like a half an hour, and I had no issues with it. Now, I showed this clip up in the beginning of this video, and you know, it's smooth. It's pretty smooth, but you notice there's some jumpiness. And I'm not saying all the other shots didn't have any jumpiness. They did have some sort of jumpiness to them. So what I wanted to do is recreate this shot using the GoPro Hero 6 while having stabilization enabled. Now, you know, this is a gimbal test. We don't really want to have any added extra stabilization on the GoPro, but I really wanted to see what would happen if I did enable it. And we immediately see an improvement to the stabilization on top of what the Slick gimbal is already doing. Now, if you require added smoothness while using this gimbal or any gimbal, enabling the stabilization within the GoPro Hero 6 or even the GoPro Hero 5 is definitely going to benefit your shots even further. But I think you're still going to need some sort of gimbal to stabilize the shots, and then you could further stabilize it using the built-in feature in the GoPro. Oh no! What? GoPro, stop recording. So overall, the Slick gimbal is a pretty good gimbal. It balanced out the shots well, it's easy to use, and it's compatible with every single GoPro out there. Now, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but it is also compatible with other action cameras. Now, I don't want to say that this is 100% perfect at balancing your shots. We still had some micro movements, a little bit of jumpiness, but when we brought it onto the mountain biking shot from the chesty, it balanced out those shots pretty well. But once we start doing walking and running shots, it picked up some of the footsteps because that's a Z-axis movement. So this is a 3-axis gimbal, and a lot of other gimbals are 3-axis gimbals. They don't really have a 4th axis, which is the up and down movement. So that's a little bit harder to stabilize. So whether or not this is a gimbal I would recommend to you, I would totally recommend it, but it all comes down to what you prefer or what you need. So the purpose of my reviews is to showcase the gimbal, capture some shots so you have a better idea on whether or not this is something that you want. So hopefully I did a good job at that, and it helps you make a decision on whether or not this is something that you'd like to get. Now, if you are interested in getting it, I got links down in the description. You can check those out. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, drop a like. That definitely helps me a lot. And if you have any other comments or questions, please leave them down below, and I'll check you out in the next video. Bye.